What's up, internet world? This is the Yukon Denali.
So the motto with this 2021 Yukon Denali is it's a premium SUV that's designed to be used. Or if you ask any owner with over 500,000 miles, it's designed to be abused. So the Denali brand was launched in 1999, and this is a fully refreshed, fully refaced, fully redone Yukon. So the Denali is actually built as a truck chassis with a body on top, or they call it frame on body. Now what that's designed to do is it's designed to attract all the buyers that generally buy trucks but want luxury that they can fit all their family in and tow up to 8,000 pounds. And that's exactly what this does. But not only that, this thing has the meanest, baddest front grille I've ever seen. Look at the size of this thing. This thing has 10,000 reflective surfaces. That's what GM claims. 10,000 reflective surfaces. They'd only give you that stat if it actually made sense and people were actually interested in it. Obviously they are, because look at this grille. JP Morgan had a study in 2006 claiming that the Denali brand by itself outsold, in terms of pesos, the Land Rover brand and almost hedged Audi. That says a lot for the brand Denali in itself, because when I think about Denali, I only think about the Yukon Denali. So the headlights are actually a C design and has something called a light blade in the headlights to project out. But think about this grille. Now this grille is massive, as I mentioned, but this is not chrome. This is satin chrome, because they actually wanted the grille to pop and not the frame of the grille to pop. Design. The Yukon's offered in two trims, the regular version and the XL version. Now the XL version is actually 15 inches longer than this monster. 15 inches longer. Most cars improve or increase their size by 6, at the most 8 inches, but the XL is 15 inches. Now this is not your only choice. They actually do offer a Tahoe as well as an Escalade. So this kind of sits in the upper tier in that segment. It's not as expensive as the Escalade. The Yukon has a starting price of approximately $80,000 and the XL version at $83,000, whereas the Escalade has a starting price of $90,000 and the long version is $93,000. And for my friends down south, that's $68,000 and $71,000. Aluminum hood. Clearly no owner of this Denali looks under the hood because it's just plain plastic. Now the engine makes 420 horsepower and 460 foot-pounds of torque out of a 6.2 liter V8. Now that does not scream electric, that screams brute power. So this Denali is equipped with the air suspension on all four corners, and what that does is it sets a normal height, and when you're on the highway at a certain speed, you can actually drop it, or it automatically drops about 3/4 of an inch. Now you can drop it 2 inches, but you can't set it that way when you drive. It's only really designed to get in and out of the vehicle, just to make it easier to get in and out. Now you can choose to go higher by 1 inch, or you can actually have to go higher by 2 inches, but the only way to do that is to put it into four-wheel low. And when you put it into four-wheel low, that actually gets rid of all your safety management systems. Hopefully you're still around, and if you are, you have to see this cluster. Now the speedometer of this car maxes out at 140 kilometers. Watch. All right guys, we're gonna take this 425 horsepower, 10-speed transmission beast out and foot to the ground, and we are gonna get to 140, which looks like its maximum speed. 140 kilometers an hour, and we're just sitting at 140. Can this thing go faster? Oh yes it can. We switch the units right to from metric to US, and bam! Look how much power I got and speed. Woohoo! In terms of design, what do you guys think about the back end and back of the car? Now, to me, there's a little bit of GMC terrain in this thing, which is probably the only thing I really don't like about the exterior of the car. I really do like the fact these have real exhaust tips. That makes it sporty. It also does have exhaust valves, or valves that open up and close You can't hear them, there's no button in there, but it actually does have them, so it does serve some sort of purpose, probably for the engine to breathe a little bit better, and maybe to just tell you that it has valves. All right, so the key. Well, the key has one extra distinct button. You see, most cars have lock, unlock, alarm, and trunk. Well, this one has an extra trunk button, and take a look. So let's hit the button. Now, I want to let you know that because I've always usually reviewed German cars on the trunk button, you hold it down for 2 to 3 seconds. Well, with domestic product or with this Denali, you actually got to hit it twice. So let's hit the first button and see what it does. It opens the trunk. And the button below it is what looks to appear as a halfway trunk, like the trunk would open up halfway, is actually just the glass. I love that. One thing German products can learn is the placement of the rear wiper. They hide it in here very, very well. That's away from snow, that's away from actual visual, because nobody really wants to see a back rear wiper. Now, one thing that they can learn from Germans is the LED taillights. You see, we should have a strip all the way down here in LEDs, not this little dinky thing. But let's get in the meat and potatoes on why someone would buy this car. So let's check it out, because that is size. That is why you're buying this car. The size is huge. You see, most cars, once you put the third row up, you can't fit anything inside. But this is 66% bigger than the last version that you can fit inside. And I can almost sit inside the back of this thing. So to try to get everybody out of the way, that means the seats, they've got buttons. Now most cars have buttons to take the third row down, like this one does. Goodbye third row. But not only that, it's got a way to get rid of the second row as well. And watch how this gets out of the way. Hello, minivan. So from all the way back there, these screens are huge. So if you're ever worried about not being able to see from the third or fourth row, you can see them. These screens are not ordered from the parts department. These screens are ordered from factory. They're actually delivered with the vehicle. Not only that, you actually don't have to depend on them for audio video. You can bring your own equipment. So you've got 2 HDMI inputs to plug in whatever you want, and you've got a full 110 voltage, so you can just plug it right in. That's pretty cool. What? So in the back here, you get some headphones, because you know what? Turn my headphones up, turn my headphones up. Not only that, you can bring this bad boy backwards and forwards, and you can recline it all the way back. Listen to some tunes. Drop top, flip flops. Jokes aside, the interior of this is actually done pretty well. There's a few accountants left in the room when they designed it. However, they actually did a really good job because they have actually hand stitched these seats. It has 2 different leathers and they're hand stitched. Hand stitched? Yeah. Driver, pass him that drink. How, you ask? This is brand new to the Denali. They actually have a fully automatic, movable center console that pivots all the way back. All right, so I'm on the inside of the Denali here, and the seats are very comfortable. I do like the way it sits. Just looking around, checking it out, breathing in, taking it all in. Because Denali has 4 different types of interior, and this interior is dedicated to the Denali. Actually, the other Yukons are different, so this dash is totally new, only for the Denali. Now, obviously at first glance, I'm saying, where's the shifter? Well, the shifter is actually up on the dash here, and it's got park, reverse, neutral, drive. If you want to put it into 4 low, you actually have to get it in neutral first, and then engage it. Now, all the controls are mainly on the left side here, not on the right like conventional cars. An example would be air suspension. All your air suspension controls are on the left-hand side. All your heads-up display, your infotainment information's here, your lane assist, your parking controls, your hill descent is all on the left side. Obviously, your memory seat and all the rest of it's on the left. But some of that stuff should be over here, but it's not because this gigantic 10.2-inch screen is here. And that's awesome, but mainly people are really going to use this for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Now, because I'm an Apple guy, my Apple CarPlay pulls up here and it pulls up very well. It's easy to use. Obviously, it all looks the same, but it's just a lot bigger for me to see. And that is important because the center display is terrible. If there's one thing I could redo on this car, it is the cluster. This cluster, not my thing, but this, awesome. Not so much, awesome. And that's probably because they actually didn't build the car for the driver per se. They built it for everybody else. And that is because if you are 6 foot tall and you sit in the third row, you have more room there than most cars in the back. You see, the third row is massive. There's so much room, and this is not the XL version. I guess that's what I think of why they didn't put a better cluster. Or maybe you have to pony up and spend 10,000 bucks extra on the Escalade. Now I'm in the third row of the Denali, and there's a ton of room. There's so much room that 3 of me can sit here and still have room. But to get in and out is the part that excites me the most. It's simply a button. You hit it, this seat drops down, you pull it, and it levers up. Now I have a lot of hate on the cluster, but there's an item on the cluster that I actually enjoy, and that's engine hours. Now you're thinking engine hours? Yes, because this is a workhorse truck, just like other equipment that are measured in hours. So at first glance, they've done a really good job with the wood. I like how it's phased in, phased out, and just not plain brown, because just plain brown would drive me crazy. But it actually fades from medium brown to black almost in the wood. And this wood, my friends, is real, believe it or not. But there is something I don't like, and that's the aluminum on the steering wheel and some of this aluminum they put over here. You see, because aluminum doesn't always mix with browns, and there's a lot of brown here. So what I personally would have done is I would have left the satin chrome all the way down here and got rid of this aluminum. But there is one thing, on some of the other GM product I've actually tested, they're actually sharp edges, but on this steering wheel, there's absolutely no sharp edges. Improvement. Look at the controls you have on your heated seats. You've got 3 increments, which is pretty standard, but not only that, you can actually have your back and your booty. Yeah, booty. But the meat and potatoes, as I said, is the center console, and that is actually brought back by a button up here, and that goes all the way back, and that allows you to access storage. You've got this extra hidden compartment right here that's actually hidden when this is all the way up. Another cool feature that the driver or passenger can operate is the third row seats. You can actually bring them up and down from buttons right here. That is pretty cool. You don't have to walk all the way back, or if it's not put all the way down, you get a warning saying that the seat is not down or not up. You just simply press a button and it pulls up or pulls down. Pretty easy to see, pretty easy to use. And for my typical headrest test, does this move in and out? Negative, doesn't move in and out. Oh, that's cool. Now for controls on the steering wheel, pretty easy to use. I still don't like the fact that these are blank buttons. I hate buttons that are not pushable or that are blank. Now this has these upper ones and this lower ones. Now instead of actually giving the exact same dimensional arrow, they should actually just say slide or rotate. And that's simple, and that'll get rid of that problem that I don't like. It does have a really unique button though. Because there are 2 110 voltage buttons, there's actually a button here that you can push that actually disengages them, so when they're plugged in, they don't draw the battery power. Now with COVID, a lot of families are buying boats, trailers, and hauling a lot of stuff. Now we talked about how much room this vehicle has, but let's talk about towing. This vehicle has 9 different cameras, including a specific camera designed to see your blind spot when you're towing. All right, so I'm in the 2021 Denali, and I'm gonna take this thing for a drive. And first things first, when I put it in reverse and there's a car on my cross traffic alert, what happens is my left butt cheek gets a vibration because there's a car coming from my left side. So it's like a rear cross traffic alert. So if there's a car coming left or right further down the street and I'm trying to back out of it, it'll give me a vibration as opposed to just giving me a beep. It'll vibrate to tell me which side the car is traveling from, left or right. Pretty cool, pretty easy to remember. Heads-up display is very big, so like those huge calculators you get from the dollar store that are about the size of a TV, that's basically how big this heads-up display is. It's 15 inches big. That's huge, and 15 is an easy number to remember because this vehicle is 15 inches longer in an XL. So if you get the regular Yukon and you get an XL, the XL is 15 inches bigger than the regular, and this thing is massive. So in terms of drive feel, this thing does have independent rear suspension now. It doesn't have 4-wheel steering, but still pretty good in terms of its lefts and its rights. Something odd though is for Bluetooth connectivity, the Bluetooth microphones, strangely enough, there's only 2. One for the driver and one for the passenger. And you think in a car this big, on one hand, you don't want all the screaming kids in the back to be heard, but on the other side of it, if you are taking people and everybody's talking in the car, you'd have microphones in the back. And all the guys that say that the GM parts bin, well, guess what? The other GM products actually do have microphones in the back, and this one doesn't. So, interesting why, but that's the case. So if you're traveling with the whole family and you got the whole Denali packed, think about this. This is brilliant. This rear camera is brilliant. I've reviewed it on the Cadillacs as well, and it's awesome because think about it. If your vehicle is filled with stuff right to the brim, that includes your trunk. Because anybody going to the cottage, and obviously with COVID, cottages have blown up and prices have tripled and all kinds of crazy nonsense happening. But if you have the vehicle filled with stuff, you can't see out the rearview mirror. But with this system, you can. Sick. By the way, it was engineered and thought of by the Canadians. Now these gauges are very truck-like. There's nothing on these gauges that scream luxury to me. This screams like hard-working utility. Even though this version I'm driving does have air suspension, and generally air suspension, when you think of air suspension, you think about floaty. It does have a little bit of float when you're going straight, but on corners, the float kind of dissipates and it goes away because it's still fairly firm. You don't get any of that reverberation back when you hit a pothole, which is really nice. Generally with all trucks, and the reason I say this is a truck is because this chassis is basically a truck chassis and then a body on top. It's not a unibody, it's not built all in one piece, it's separated and it's put together. And that's why this thing is solid and built like a truck, and that's why it sells to people that are going to use it. It's not built to be a showpiece, which is probably what the Escalade is like a little bit more, because when you spend that much more money, and it's not that much more money, but it's still about $10,000 more. And at that price point, you get a cool dash and it's awesome, but everything inside and all the space you get is pretty much identical to this. Now for 2021, in the Denali, you get magnetic ride, and as an option, you get air suspension. Now what magnetic ride is, it was actually first developed by GM back in 2003, and it was put in the Corvette. And what that essentially means is it's shock absorber based, and then they wanted to control the rebounding of how the car reacted. So instead of actually getting out of your car and turning and screwing and making the suspension harder and firmer, it's done by a button. And that button basically controls the magnets, whether they're on or off. And there's magnets in the fluid that's in the shock absorber. So in the shock absorber, when the magnets are on, or if the viscosity of the liquid, or the magnets, are thick, it's hard for the shock absorber to push down on it. Or if it's very easy to bounce. So basically that's how it's done, and it was invented by GM, or a subsidiary of GM called Delphi, or I don't know how to pronounce it. Aha, I got you, GM. Check this out. LEDs. Not LEDs. So you either forgot about it, or you're thinking that you don't want to have LEDs blasting your face, so you make a softer pinkish white light, or pinkish yellow light. This weighs 6,000 pounds, or almost 6,000 pounds. So 425 horsepower sounds like a lot, and 460 pounds of torque sounds like a lot, but it's still 6,000 pounds. So this is a fairly bumpy road, and this suspension handles it very well. It's soft, and you don't feel all the bumps in the road. That is the air suspension, but that's also what domestic product does very well. You see, German products, I can feel every bump in the road. And yeah, the steering is a little bit tighter on German products. Obviously, around a corner, I can probably feel a little bit more. But I'm still in control. I don't feel like I'm not in control. I think that's one of the biggest fears I had with some of the older generation domestic products that were very bubbly or couch-like, that I just didn't feel like I was in control. And because I'm so driver-focused and driver-oriented, that I just didn't feel like I had it. In terms of cabin noise and overall noise, they have insulated the front two windows. I noticed the back ones aren't done, but it is quiet. It's not loud by any means. I mean, there's not a lot of engine noise you can hear. The OnStar actually helps in boosting the signal strength of the phone. So it does have the wireless charging, throw the wireless charging in there, and it actually does extend the range of your cell phone. So if you have good reception out to wherever you go with this vehicle, you can extend your range. And it's also got something called mirroring in the back, so you can mirror your phone right to the back screens. Yeah, more tech stuff. All right, guys, I hope you like this review on this 2021 Yukon Denali. Now, who's gonna buy this car and who's gonna watch this video? Well, if you made this far, it's probably you. So from myself, Mike, and from the man behind the camera, Ian, thank you for watching. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.